Great, awesome. So hello everyone. I know it's Tuesday, almost afternoon, but today I have special guests here. I have Cam and her three graduate students here together with us. They are joining from the United States from Rice University. Hello. So my name is Hani and I am the Education USA advisor. And as you guys know, I am mostly dealing with undergraduate students, but I know and I sometimes get requests for graduate studies. So today I invited these special guests to talk about graduate admission process so that you get all the information you need. But first off, I'll just introduce Education USA real quick, and then I'll leave the floor to my special guests. So if you are joining for the first time, Education USA, and you're gonna see it on the next slide, is a network that provides free services. So if you're thinking about studying in the United States, undergraduate, graduate level, please let me know. I'm so happy to help. And you're gonna meet some wonderful people today. So if you need help from them directly, I'm sure they're gonna be contact information at the end, and feel free to reach out as well. And on the next slide, you will see that the advising centers are all around the Czech Republic. My advising center is now virtual, which is awesome. I work from Brno, but I work virtually, so I can jump on a Zoom call with anyone for a consultation. You can reach out to me via email, or you can WhatsApp me, or you can just go on Instagram and send me a message. But if you are close to Plzeň, Ústí, Olomouc, Brno, Ostrava, and Praha, there are American centers there where you can get some advising and help in person as well. And lastly, all of the services are free. So, I offer consultations. I do have some library prep books, and we do some live streams, such as this one. And if you scan the QR code, that's going to get you to our monthly newsletter with information and to-do lists, and you will find us on social media under Education USA Czech. So feel free to check it out. And now I'll leave the floor to my colleague and friend Cam, who is going to walk you through the graduate process. And she will definitely also mention Rice University. Thank you, Cam, for joining us.
Thanks, Honey. That was a good joke. I really appreciate it. So my name is Cam, and I here with me have my three graduate student ambassadors, and I'll go ahead and introduce myself first and then give them the floor. So like I've heard before, my name is Cam. I'm the graduate student development and recruitment administrator here at Rice University. We're located in Houston, Texas, which is kind of like Southeast Texas. So, and now I'm going to give my graduate student ambassadors a chance to introduce themselves. Isha, you're first on my screen, so I'm going to call you out.
Hi, everyone. I'm Isha. I'm a second year PhD student in electrical and computer engineering. I work in building computer vision tools for healthcare applications. I'm originally from California, and I've been an ambassador since earlier this year.
Manuel, I see you next.
Okay. So hi, everyone. My name is Manuel Carmona. I'm a fourth year in the chemistry department. I'm originally from Mexico. And yeah, it's nice to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Steve, I see you last.
Yeah, my name is Steve. I'm from Cameroon, and I'm a third year PhD student in the statistics department. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you to my ambassadors for being here, and thank you all for also being here. So I'm going to go ahead and start off a little bit about Rice. So this is Rice's campus. It's very beautiful. I will say I do need to redo this image because we recently redid the quad. But I really like this picture because here on the left, you can see downtown Houston, and here on the right, you can see Herman Park, where a lot of students will go and spend their time outside of like lab or with their grad groups. So I really do like this picture for that reason. And here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out if you do have any questions afterwards or during. I probably won't respond during, but happy to help out in any way I can. And then at the end, I'll also ask my ambassadors to put their emails as well. So if you have any specific questions about their programs, they can help you out as well. I did include here a couple of important links. So we do have our graduate student ambassador group. These are current grad students, and I think they're a great resource because they can just offer you such a unique perspective. Fulbright is a scholarship that I believe Hani knows very well. They'll help you. It's a very competitive scholarship that allows you to come and study in the States. And it's a very great opportunity, makes you a very competitive applicant. And then I'm just going to include our general graduate.rice.edu. This will have programs about all, or information about all of our different programs, such as the deadline and requirements. So it's a very important link if you're interested in applying to grad school.
That's awesome. Thank you, Cam. So I just wanted to kind of encourage you guys, because I see that you are watching live. If you do have questions, I am monitoring the live chat. So feel free to type it in and I'll read it out loud at the end and we will reply to it. Thank you.
And then before I move on, I wanted to give you a couple of facts about Houston. We are one of the most largest and diverse cities in the United States. There's a statistic out there that about like 40% of families speak Spanish at the dinner table, which I find a pretty cool fact. I'm actually one of those families. My family's from Argentina, so we do speak Spanish as well. What I really like about Houston, I will say, is that there's something for everyone. So if you are a big sports person, we, like my brother who loves soccer or football everywhere else in the world, we have multiple different sports teams. So I really think there's something for everyone. I like to climb, so after work, I'll go and climb in the climbing gym. And so that's one of my favorite things about Houston is there's really something for everyone. It has lots of green space, amazing food. I'm very food motivated, so you can find food from all different parts of the world, and it's actually very good food. And then also one of the world's largest medical centers. So the reason I talk a little bit about the medical center is because it's located right next to Rice. So if you look here, these red brick buildings are Rice, and then right here is the medical center, and then over here is downtown. The medical center has a lot of ongoing research and collaboration with especially the bioengineering department here at Rice. So if you are interested in the medical route, but not necessarily medical school, then I would recommend looking into our bioengineering department. It is one of the largest medical centers in the world, and although it's never fun to get sick, you do have the opportunity to visit lots of doctors right next to Rice. And yes, and it has over 20 hospitals and 100,000 employees. So it's kind of like a mini downtown, I like to say. So enough about Houston. I'll get to talking about our different programs and schools here at Rice. So the way I like to see it, these different schools are going to have different programs. So if you look into the School of Engineering, you're going to have chemical and biomolecular engineering, computer engineering, electrical engineering. So that's going to be housed under the School of Engineering. And now it's the School of Engineering and Computing, I believe. So a little bit different now. You're going to have humanities, which is going to be English, religion, philosophy. Those type of programs will be in humanities. Natural science will be physics, chemistry, biosciences. Those will be housed in the School of Natural Science. And lastly, the School of Social Science is going to be political science, economics, and those other type of programs. And you can find a full list on our programs of study page if my ambassadors wouldn't mind adding that link to the chat. And then within each school, you're going to have 3 different types of degrees that you can potentially earn. So first, the doctoral degree. This is a terminal degree, so this is the highest degree that you can earn in the United States. It does take up to 4 to 6 years to complete, so it is, if you're not willing to spend 4 to 6 years, then I would recommend looking into a master's program. A little bit more about the doctoral degree. It is a fully funded program. What that means is that we will waive tuition and we do offer a stipend. That stipend does start at $34,000 and it can go up from there. But it does depend on the department. Essentially, what that means is you're getting paid to do research. A common misconception is you don't need a master's degree to apply. So you can go directly from completing your undergrad to getting a PhD. And we'll talk a little bit more about the PhD in the coming slides. A research-based master's degree is typically earned en route to a PhD. So the way I like to think about it is you'll apply to a PhD program, but then you'll come out with both a master's degree and a PhD. And that's, most programs will do that, but it's not common for all programs. So that's something to do some research on. But I do know some students that are like, oh, a PhD isn't for me, and they'll leave with just the master's. But that isn't the way to do it, but that is something that I have heard students do. A professional master's degree is more of a non-thesis degree, and that means you don't present a thesis at the end of your program, and it's typically just to provide you an edge in industry, and no funding is provided. Some of the programs will have scholarships, but it's not super common, so I do recommend doing a little bit of research on funding. What I'll see most is a lot of students will come in already working for a company, and that company will sponsor them to get their master's. That's what I see most often when it comes to professional master's degrees.
I do have one question already. Can I pose it? So
yes.
We have a question regarding, if a Czech student finishes his or her bachelor degree in the Czech Republic, is she eligible to apply for a master's or doctoral degree at Rice?
Yes, of course, yes. There will be specific, each program has, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second, but each program has specific requirements. So just make sure you're following the requirements of the program you're applying to. Yes, you can.
Thank you.
So a little bit about the requirements. This is just a general, very general. Each program may have more specific requirements, so it is important to double check the program you're applying to. So first off, we have a GPA of 3.0 or higher. I know for most other countries, it's not out of a 4.0 scale, so you will need to convert it to a 4.0 scale, which that's a lot of math, and math was not my forte growing up. So, but there are websites that can help you do that online. But you will need, so typically you will need a 3.0 or higher, but I have known students, it's not a hard requirement, but it will go to the Dean of Graduate Studies if it is a little bit lower than a 3.0. So just know that don't let it deter you, but just know that there will be an additional step if you don't meet the 3.0 or higher GPA. I will talk a little bit more about the GRE in the next couple of slides, but the GRE is the Graduate Record Examination. It is currently waived for most programs, but political science is making a comeback with it, so it is required if you're interested in applying to the political science program. TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo, these are language proficiency exams that we do require for all our international applicants. If my grad ambassadors wouldn't mind adding the link in the chat, which I don't know if it transfers over to the Facebook Live, but
I am actually transferring it. But if you guys want to log on to Facebook and just follow EducationUSA Czech Republic, you can add it underneath the live stream directly. I'll leave that up to you. Yeah.
I'll let my ambassadors spearhead that. But yes, the language requirements will be listed on our website. So there are specific scores that will need to be met. I do recommend taking that with time just because it does take time to get from the scores or the testing center to us. So make sure you're taking that with a couple of months it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get to us. And like I mentioned before, individual department requirements may vary. So do make sure you're reading all of the requirements from the website for your department specifically. And then lastly, master's is not required for a PhD admission. So again, you can go directly from your undergrad to a PhD program. I did briefly talk about this, but we do waive tuition for doctoral students. That means you won't be paying us for taking classes. And in addition, you do receive a stipend to cover the cost of living expenses. The one thing I would say to consider about the stipend is that, for example, if you go to a school in California, they might offer you a little bit of a higher stipend, but you will have a higher cost of living. So just taking into account the location you're going to be in and the cost of living is also important when it comes to the stipend. So where to start? I think the journey to grad school involves a lot of self-reflection, but I think these are important things to ask yourself. The first thing, especially if you're interested in a PhD, is to look at the program, research areas, or faculty projects. What I mean by that is when you enter into a PhD program, you're going to be doing research with this professor for the next 4 to 6 years. So you kind of want to make sure you like the research that they're doing. In addition, the type of program. So what's best for you? Should I be doing a master's? Do I just want to go into industry after? If you want to be a professor, especially in the United States, you do need a PhD. So asking yourself, what do I want to do after? What type of program will allow me to do this after I graduate my undergrad? Funding opportunities, again, like I said, funding stipends can differ among different universities, but taking into account the cost of living. Also, some schools might have scholarships for masters versus some schools might not. That's not as common, like at Rice. And I do think it's really important to take the last two in common. What I love about Rice is the supportive community. I see our grad students, which I'll have them talk a little bit about at the end, the type of communities that they're involved in, what they get to do on and off campus. And I think that's really important, especially, again, if you're considering a PhD, which can take 4 to 6 years. So you want to make sure that's a big chunk of time. You want to make sure you're having a good time as well in and out of the lab or other workspace. Location, location, location. I can't emphasize this enough. For example, I'm a big hiker and Houston doesn't have mountains. We have hills, barely. But I think that if I were to go to grad school, I'd look at somewhere where I could go like hiking on the weekends or so that would be important for me. But just knowing what again, it involves a lot of self-reflection. So what do you need in the location you're going to be living in? What do you look for? If you like a little bit of hotter weather, then you're in the right place as well. So just taking into account what you need when you're going on your graduate school journey is really important. So we did kind of state a couple of points, but these are really good questions to also ask yourself as you're starting this journey. What programs are a good fit? So again, that question kind of can vary on what that means for you. So I know a couple of grad students that when they were looking at grad school, they were actually looking at more the PI or the primary investigator. I forgot what. Yeah, primary. We're going to go with the PI, the main advisor that you're going to be working with. And they were just kind of considering if they would work better with this individual versus looking at the research. So what programs are a good fit? That can mean a lot of different things, but it's really important for you to consider what is important for you for this program to be a good fit. That's the way I like to frame it. So for some people is what they wanted to make sure they worked well with their PI or the main advisor. For some people, it's the research. They want to make sure they actually enjoy the research that they're doing. So asking yourself this is really important as well. What do you need to apply? So here at Rice, the schools, the requirements vary greatly program to program. So you need to make sure you're reviewing very closely what is needed from you to apply. How does the application process work? Making sure you're keeping in line with all those deadlines. When should all your materials be ready? And then take careful note of resources. You guys are already ahead of the game. You're coming to an Education USA webinar, so you're already on top of it. But just taking note of all those things that you can use to support you in this grad school journey. And then where will you be happy, supported, and championed? So what can you do now to prep? First off, you can start reading some journals. The reason for this is a lot of these journals will be written by your PI or other grad students. So you'll see the type of writing / language that they use in these journals. And so you can know kind of what to expect when you apply to grad school. Pursue research opportunities. So I think this would be useful, especially if you're interested in a PhD. It is not required. I know people that went from being a music teacher to pursuing a PhD in biosciences. So it's not necessary to have research, but it will help you fully understand if that's something you're interested in. Research various schools and what they focus in. I will say don't limit yourself on the name of a program. So for example, I graduated in my undergrad was in political science and international studies. But when I was looking at grad school, for example, here at Rice, we offer a Master of Global Affairs program. Even though it has a little bit of a different name than international studies, it's essentially the same thing. So don't limit yourself by the name of a program in a certain school. Look more closely at the research or the type of classes that you're going to be taking, because I think that's a better indicator of what you're going to be studying. And I know I've said this before, but it's really important to look at faculty research projects and take into account what they're working on. And then lastly, apply to fellowships like Fulbright or NSF GRP. These are extremely competitive fellowships that will give you an edge when you're applying to grad school. And a lot of programs will take a second look at your application if you have this on there. So I did touch on this briefly at the beginning, but I'm going to go a little bit more into depth. So transcripts are required. We will accept your unofficial transcript when you apply, but if you are accepted to the program, we will need an official transcript, which again takes time. So give yourself a little bit of leeway when you're asking your university for this. The graduate admission exam scores, the GRE, again, is slowly making its comeback, but as of right now, only political science is requiring it. I did talk about this, the English language proficiency at Rice will accept TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. I have heard Duolingo is the least expensive option, so I would take a look at your different options as well. Application fee waivers, do ask for waivers. Most departments will waive your application fee, especially for the PhD program. We do offer an application fee waiver weeks, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end of our presentation. Proof of financial support, this is essentially just to show that you can fund your studies here in the United States. That will be more of a post application / acceptance thing. Letters of recommendation, we usually need 3, but I will chat a little bit more about who they need to come from in a later slide. Personal statement and or statement of purpose. Diversity statement isn't always required, but it is a good chance for you to talk to the admissions committee. So it's another opportunity for you to tell your story, which is, I think, really important. CV or resume and research experience. Again, this isn't required, but it does help you understand if a PhD is something you're interested in. So I've touched on a lot about the GRE, but what does the GRE and the language surrounding it mean? So the language surrounding it can be a little bit interesting. So some schools have made the GRE optional, they'll say. If it's optional, that means it's truly optional and you don't have to take it. Many others are going to say they strongly suggest or recommend the GRE. In that case, I would take the GRE. And then some, it will be required. In that case, it is required and you will need to take it in order for them to review your application. There's 3 different sections: quantitative, verbal, analytical writing. Again, I've mentioned this before, but it does take about 2 to 4 weeks for your exam scores to reach us. So give yourself enough time for it to reach us, especially if you're doing a little bit closer to the application deadline. And then I will say lastly, there is no one score that we're looking at. School scores can vary greatly from school to school or even program to program within the same school. So there isn't one score that will make you more competitive than another applicant, but just know that you're following the language is really important. So again, required or strongly recommended is I would take it in that case, and then optional, it's truly optional. So I've touched on this before, but recommendation letters. So recommendation letters, especially for a PhD program, should usually come from someone you've worked with in an academic setting. So this could be a professor in your favorite class or a professor you've done research with. And these are typically preferred over industry. So if you've worked with someone like a supervisor, it's okay if one of them is from industry, but do try to have them mostly from someone you've worked with in an academic setting. For masters, that's not as much required. It's okay if it's a little bit more from industry, but do try to have 1 or 2 from someone in an academic setting. And then don't ask your recommender the night before. I don't think you or them are going to be very happy with the results. So when you are emailing them, attach your CV and also let them know that you'll be following up regarding all of the deadlines. Give them a lot of time. Professors can be very busy individuals, so you want to make sure that you're doing this again with time.
So Cam, we do have a question now. It probably comes from an undergraduate student who is thinking about graduate studies, because here she's asking that for undergraduate, they used Common App for application, but Common App isn't used for graduate applications, correct? So where do all of these documents go, or how to send them?
That's a great question. So we do have an application portal, which is managed by a company called Slate. So it's very different from Common App. I actually trying to remember Common App. I remember using it, but it's been a while. If my ambassadors wouldn't mind adding the application portal link in the chat. but essentially you'd be applying there. So all of your application materials will go through that. For the recommender letters, the way it's going to work is that you'll insert the recommender's email, and then they'll get a link in order to submit your recommendation letter. So you'll never handle the recommendation letter on your own. They'll submit it directly to us. So everything will be done through the application portal. Submitting all materials and the application itself. And this is Rice specific, so I don't know how. Cool. Just wanted to make.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Statement of purpose. So essays should be school and discipline program specific. What I mean by that is each program may or may not have prompts that they want you to address when you're applying. So do make sure you're reading the website. I know I've said that like 10 times, but it's really important because each program might have specific things that they want you to address in your statement of purpose and or in your application. So it's really important to take a look at that when you're applying. The statement of purpose is, or personal statement, is your chance to speak directly to the committee and show your command of language and follow all directions. So this is a really important chance for you to speak to the community or the admissions committee directly. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the differences between SOP and personal statement in the next couple of slides. SOP generally means your academic statement of purpose. Some programs might use this interchangeably. I don't know the difference between them, but some will, and they'll list that on their application requirements. Both a statement of purpose and a personal statement show that you can think and write clearly and competently. So do make sure you have someone reviewing it, like a former professor, a trusted colleague, or friend or other individual in your academic program. But it is an opportunity for you to speak directly to the admissions committee. So it's really important that you just make sure it's all grammatically correct. You'd be surprised at how many individuals list the wrong university. So make sure you're listing Rice in your application. The statement of purpose addresses kind of your academic interests and explains why you want to pursue a degree at the specific institution. Again, it is a chance for you to show how you think and write. A personal statement is kind of similar, but it's more geared toward your personal life experiences and kind of why you're a good human and why you'd be a good human for this program. Again, both are a chance for you to show how you think and write.
And so do I understand it correctly that the statement of purpose is from now and into the future, whereas the personal statement is what I've done from the past until now to get ready for this?
That's kind of a good way to think about it. The statement of purpose could also be kind of a little bit in the past, or wait, yeah, can be in the past because it shows like what you've done, like research-wise, like I've participated with X professor, and this is why I think I'd be great with X professor in grad school. So it can also be in the past, but it's kind of explaining why your academic history would be a good fit for this program. So it could also be in the past.
Got it. I do have two questions here in the chat box. One of them is, do you support or do you encourage students to reach out to professors prior to applying and just like see whether it's a good idea, whether they have a fit, or whether there is a connection?
Yes, that's actually a great question, and I will be addressing that question in a future slide, but I do encourage everyone to reach out to faculty, especially if you're pursuing a PhD. But I'll go a little bit more into that in a later slide.
Great. And I lost the second one. Sorry, I'll get back to it. So sorry.
Okay. Oh, it's perfect. Our next question was
great. Yeah.
So it is really common to approach faculty that you want to work with. What I will say about that is not all faculty will respond to your message. The reason for that is that they are extremely individuals. They might get more than 100 emails a day, so they might not always have the time to respond, but they will see it and they will take that into account when they go to the admissions committee. The reason it's important to connect with faculty is some programs will admit a cohort of students. So I'm going to have my ambassadors talk about this in a second, but they'll admit a cohort of students, or you'll be matched directly with a faculty advisor before you enter the program. And in that case, it's better to reach out to the faculty. But I will have my ambassadors talk about what they did when they were applying to grad school. Isha, you're first on my screen again. You're muted, Isha.
Oh, your mic. Yeah.
So sorry. I think it depends if your program is cohort-based or not, like Cam said. And so my program is cohort-based in electrical and computer engineering. And so that means that you kind of have to do the research yourself and kind of investigate who you want to work with, but there's no kind of obligation to commit to anyone. And so I reached out to like 3 or 4 faculty members. I met with like I think 2 of them. And then I actually work with both of them now. So it worked out. But that's not always the case for everyone. A lot of the time you'll reach out to people and they'll be too busy and they can't meet with you. But that doesn't mean that reduces your chances of being able to work with them. For me, all it really did was kind of verify that their work was something that I was interested in. But I'm sure I would have gotten that if I just did a little bit more research into their papers and stuff. And so I think a lot of the engineering-based programs, at least at Rice, are typically like this, where you kind of are admitted to this cohort and then you rotate through labs. So you don't necessarily have to choose ahead of time. But I've heard that in the humanities, this is definitely different, and you have to choose kind of your advisor from before. But yeah, this is kind of how the C works. If anyone has any more questions about that.
No, very well, thank you.
Okay, so I'm next. In my case, I knew my advisor beforehand. I had the opportunity to visit Rice before, so I managed to make some connections with certain professors, so it was easy for me to contact him directly. But what I asked was basically if he had like openings in his lab, first of all, because sometimes there can be a lab that you're really interested in, the professor might be amazing, but they don't have the funding or space in their lab to take students. And that's something really important to know before joining joining any lab. But another thing is that like you said, like sometimes talking to professors is a bit complicated. Like they are really busy people. I've seen like my boss running around of the amount of like messages. Their phone is always ringing. They're really busy people. So in case you're really interested in a lab and you don't manage to contact the professor, well, first of all, there's us, the graduate ambassadors, who can help you connect. But if not, like you can also try to contact the students in the labs because they may sway the professor to at least answer your email, or at least they can give you the like direct info and also their perspective of what do they think now that they've been working in the lab. So I think it's always a good idea like to contact the professor, but if not, like to also reach out to the people working for that professor.
I think that both Isha and Manuel, and then Steve, I'll get to you in a sec, I haven't forgotten, have made really good points. When you are applying, and especially in the statement of purpose and or personal statement, they may ask you what advisors that you want to work with. Don't limit yourself to just one. So if you say you want to work with X professor and X professor isn't accepting students, then you've essentially they won't accept you into the program because they won't have the person that you want to work with. So keep your options open, have 2 or 3 faculty that you'd be willing to work with and have reasons for why you want to work with those faculty. Steve, I haven't forgotten about you. If you want to tell us what kind of system your program has.
Oh, in the statistic department, it depends, but you don't necessarily have to know like your advisor before applying. But as I always say, it kind of you have an advantage if you are already in touch with the professor sometimes. In my case, for example, I knew my advisor before applying because I used to collaborate on some project with him. So when I started the application process, I reached him out and things. In the meantime, I know a lot of people too who got admission without being in touch with any professor in the department. They just make sure that they send in the application online, which is well built. They make sure that everything's okay. They went through like kind of interview during the admission process, discussing with professor, asking, responding questions. And then at the end of the day, they got their admission. So yeah, that's a little bit what I know about the statistics department so far.
Thank you, Steve. So Cam, there is one more question. Is there an advantage to someone's application to get in touch beforehand, like, throughout the application process, apart from knowing who would you like to work with, can this person make a difference in your application process as well? Like in the admission office?
Like if you reach out beforehand?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it would hurt at all. I think it would actually help you. Again, like in some cases, especially if you need a direct match, in that case, it would be especially beneficial to reach out. But in a cohort, you'll get to rotate through the different labs and kind of connect with faculty in that scenario. So I think it doesn't ever hurt. I know that I've heard one student actually read the professor's entire thesis and managed to like show them that they read it. And that really made like a statement piece for the professor and they accepted the student. But I don't think
Thank you.
yeah, I don't think it would hurt. I think it could be actually beneficial if but again, don't limit yourself to that one professor. Just because that they aren't accepting students and you're like, I'm only going to work with X professor. Well, unfortunately, X professor isn't accepting. So if your options like have 2 to 3 professors you'd be willing to work with and reach out to all of them as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
That I would like to ask to add is that, of course, it's good to reach out professors, but when you are writing your statement of purpose or the kind of research you're interested in, you have to be specific. Sometimes if you reach out to 3 professors and trying to put those 3 research differently in your statement of purpose, some people will look at you as someone who is not serious because sometimes you have to be kind of, what do you want to do? You don't have to be navigating between different things as you just want to get admission. You have to be specific and know what you want.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. And then just a little bit about continuing with faculty. Send them an email. Again, it won't hurt. And then Manuel also made a good point about reaching out to the grad students if they don't respond. We do have our graduate student ambassadors as well, which are super helpful. They're a helpful resource, and they also, again, have such a unique perspective about being in those labs and or work environments if they're not in a lab. Be engaging and also sell it yourself. I will say I do think that most professors can tell when you're being genuine. And then, like Steve said, make sure you know what you want when you're reaching out to faculty and include your CV. And then also, I'll say this in the application as well. Some faculty and or programs might not be super familiar with the grading scale that you use. So just tell them why it's, or not tell them why, but tell them that it's different and explain your GPA in kind of terms of the 4.0 scale as well. So a little bit of the timeline, this is more for a PhD, but again, for master's, it's always important as well to get started early. In September, the application does open for us. I do believe this is similar for most other schools in the States, but for specifically for Rice, it opens on September 1st. I think this is a great time to start the application, ask for transcripts, ask for rec letters, and start drafting your essays. October would be a good time to take the GRE or the English test. Again, it does take 2 to 4 weeks for scores to get to us. And then recommenders should start submitting their letters and you should start reaching out to faculty around this time. November is typically a good time to perfect those essays. Make sure you're getting lots of input when you're working on the essays. Follow up with faculty or recommenders as needed. December is when you're going to start seeing the first couple of deadlines. I believe chemistry has one of the earlier deadlines, but I'm not super sure about the other programs. January and February is a time to come visit campus. If you do get the opportunity to visit any campus of the schools you're applying, I do recommend it. I think you can tell a lot about the environment, the vibes, especially if you get to come on campus. March/April is when you're going to see most of the decisions. For masters, this can be a little bit different. You might have a little bit of later deadline, and they usually do rolling admissions offers. So kind of like a first come, first serve situation. April 15th is the national deadline in the States to accept a PhD offer. If a school tries to convince you to choose them early, they are being unethical, and you do not need to follow that. So for PhD, it is April 15th is the national deadline.
Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. Yeah, thank you for the information. Yeah.
A couple of final notes. You'd be surprised at how many applications are incomplete. So do make sure you've uploaded and you will be able to see everything on your application status page. So make sure everything has that little green check mark so you're all good to go. Save and name all your documents properly. Again, you'd be surprised how many applications we receive with the wrong university name. And then I'll talk a little bit about our fee waiver weeks, but do make sure you're asking for those application fee waivers. And lastly, that famous saying, the early bird gets the worm, I really think that's true. So starting early is super important, just to make sure you have enough time to reach out to your recommenders, reach out to faculty at the university you're applying to, and just make sure you have all of the application materials complete. And then I'm here going to give sorry, did you have a question, honey?
Yeah, there actually was one more question, whether there is an interview with, throughout the application process.
So that's a great question. Some programs will have an interview, some won't. That very much varies by program. So there could be one. I believe biosciences is one of the ones that comes off the top of my head that they do an interview, but yes, that can happen.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to give my graduate student ambassadors the floor here to talk about student life. There are a couple of events that I really like that we host during the year. One of those is Culture Night. So if you're food motivated like me, it happens every spring by the office. I think it also happened in the fall. I'm getting my days mixed up, but it's a very great event. Everyone from different cultures comes and brings food from their like specific culture, and you get to try everything. And it's truly a really fun event. A lot of grad students will come together in this time. Beer bike is exactly what it sounds. You're going to have one person drinking beer if they're over 21, water if not. And then biking all over campus. I think it's a really cool event because literally all of campus comes together. So you'll have alumni, undergrads, grads, and it's a really cool event. It takes place in April, early April. And then the Bryce Pride Festival that typically happens in June. And these are just some of the chances that our grad students have to get together. But I'm going to give our grad students the opportunity to talk about their experiences in student life. So I'm going to mix it up. Steve, you're last on my screen, but you want to go first.
Yeah, about student life, what I can see is that there's a lot of activities going on off campus, a lot of clubs, and you have like activities almost every week on campus. So you have a wide range of things that you can do to distress or to relax. And aside of that, Houston is a great place to visit. You have the zoo, which is not far away from the campus. Downtown is like 15 minutes down there. You walk around, you can visit. You have a broad range of diversity related to food, restaurant, and so on. So you have a lot of options. So sometimes you will be like, okay, what do I want to do? You try to check. You have a lot of options on hand, either off campus or on campus. Yeah, you really have a lot to do. So
Thanks, Steve. Do you have anything else to add? I'm not cutting you off, right? Manuel.
Yeah, I think what Steve says is true. Like there's events almost every day. And there's all like he said, like a lot of clubs and organizations. And what I like about that is that even if there's something you like that doesn't exist per se, you can actually like right now they open the application for you to open your own club. So even if there's like, for example, you like playing frisbee, we have a frisbee club, but let's say no one plays frisbee and you know people that play frisbee and you want to promote it, you can actually form your own club. And I think that's pretty cool. And at the same time, there's really big cultural organizations. For example, I was part of the committee of LACSA, which is the Latin American Graduate Student Association. And are just out of the Latino community, there are 3 different organizations. And on Friday is the Fiesta Latina, which is our biggest event, and the 3 of them get together just to organize that. in collaboration also with the Brazilian organization Brasa. So I think it's a really big, even though like the university is small per se, we're really like the communities are pretty big and they're really united. And I think that's something pretty important, at least for me.
Thanks, Manuel. Isha?
Yeah, I think they covered a lot of good things already, but I'll just add on kind of what I'm a part of here. And so I am a part of Salseros, and so they're the salsa team on campus, and I only go to like the practices every week. I think it's kind of a fun way to meet new people. A lot of people from the medical center also are involved, and so it's just kind of a fun way to learn a new dance style. I'm also like vaguely involved with the Indian students at Rice Group, and they also have so many events all the time. But I'd say predominantly I'm more involved with my department, and so I help run like the diversity, equity, inclusion committee for the electrical engineering department. I'm also I help run the grad women's group for our department as well, and so that's kind of where I'm more so involved. But I do really enjoy the fact that Rice kind of has events every single day, and so usually what will happen is that a friend will just text me and be like, "Oh, like our group is doing this. Do you want to just stop by?" And then I do, and it's a good way to kind of relax after work.
And lots of food at all of
Yes,
these events.
so true.
So much food. But thank you guys for adding your student life experience. A couple of shameless plugs here at the end before our Q&A. We do host coffee chats by our wonderful ambassadors. They happen every month, multiple times a month, different times during the day to accommodate the different time zones. I think this is kind of a great opportunity to meet current grad students, ask their perspective, and kind of get to know more about grad school and grad school here at Rice specifically. I've been hyping this up the whole slides, but our fee waiver weeks, they're starting next Monday, I believe, or yes, next Monday, October 14th till November 1st. Essentially, if you meet all of the requirements and follow all of the deadlines, you will get a PhD, a waiver for any PhD program except for the business schools, unfortunately. So do make sure you're, if my ambassadors wouldn't mind adding this link, do make sure you're checking this out just in case you are applying to grad school. This is my last shameless plug. GCURS, it happens every fall. It is happening rather soon, but it's an undergraduate research symposium where you can come and present research that you've done elsewhere. Travel awards are available and some virtual opportunities may be available. It's typically open to students in the STEM field, but this year we're opening it up to psychological sciences and economics. So if you are interested, I'll have my ambassadors also add the link as well. Thank you guys. And then if there's any questions. And then thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kim. I actually don't see any questions right now because I think that the last slides were like amazing and everybody's just making notes and so forth. So thank you so much. And everyone, Manuel, Isha, and Steve, thank you so much for sharing your experience. You all seem very passionate about Rice University. And it's such a pleasure to, hear from all of you. And I hope that you guys have a successful year, or I don't know how many years you have left. So enjoy it. And you guys who are watching, all of you from the Czech Republic and Slovakia, please, you see all of us. We are happy to help. Feel free to reach out. And I hope that, the admission process goes well. And just visit the coffee hour and ask these ambassadors about anything you need, okay? Ken, thank you again.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. So with that, I'm just gonna say goodbye. Please, if you have any questions, you can also put it underneath the live stream, and either I'll reply to it and I'll forward to Cam, and she'll reply to that. Thank you so much for being with us today, and have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, you too.